I'm going to introduce the very basic tools on how to move and adjust an object. And again, this video is for absolute beginners in Blender. So make sure we're on the same page, make sure you're in object mode, and make sure the workspace is layout. So this layout tab should be enabled. Okay, so this is the default, when you open a new file, this is what you'll see. And there's other objects in here besides this cube. There's a light and a camera, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. Now over on the left are some basic tools, and I'm not going to cover all of them. But the top one, which usually comes in as the default enabled tool, is the select tool, which means you can select. If I click off something, I can deselect it. If I hover over an object, and I can select the light and the camera too, but if I hover over the sphere when it's deselected and click on it, you get this amber outline. That means it's selected. Now when any object is selected, it appears over here in the outliner as selected. Okay, so, and I'll cover these at the end of this video, but okay, the cube is selected, and as you'll notice, there are attributes down here in this little properties window for any object that I select, and I'll come back to that later. Alright, so that's the selection tool, pretty straightforward. The other three tools that I'm going to cover in this video are the move, rotate, and scale tools, and we can use these icons, and there's also keyboard shortcuts. So let's cover the move tool first. So with the object selected, I select the move tool, and you can see there's 3 arrows. Now in the 3D world of Blender, blue is Z, which is in Blender, the orientation is up and down. The x-axis is red, and the y-axis is green. And if you look over in the upper right, this little gizmo here emulates that. So in the world of Blender, X and Y, are at 90 degrees, which is, yay, that's good, but their Z-axis goes up into space. Other 3D apps have different orientations, so just be aware of that. Okay, so anyway, with the move tool selected, what I can do now with these 3 axes visible to me, I can grab for example, the Y, the green arrow, and it's constrained along the y-axis. The movement is constrained along the y-axis. If I grab the red arrow, the movement is constrained along the x-axis. And I might as well now, let me just move this up into a weird place. Okay, so now, again, it's selected, so here's cube, and in the properties window here, there's locations of X, Y, and Z. So you can see these numbers have changed. Okay, so if I want this object to go back to its origin where it was created, I can select these numbers and zero out everything. Just input 0 for X, 0 for Y, and then 0 for Z, and it's back in the origin where it started. So the only thing I want you to be aware of is you can change the location of your object by inputting values in location X, Y, and Z, and also when you move the object, the new locations will show up here in the properties window. Okay, there's another way we can move stuff, but I'm going to do that later. Okay, let's go to the next tool, the rotate tool. So click on rotate, and if I grab the red circle, it rotates around the x-axis. The green will rotate it around the y-axis, and yep, you guessed it, the blue circle rotates it around the z-axis. And over here in the properties window, we got all these weird numbers now because I just randomly moved everything. Again, I could zero those out if I wanted to, or I could enter any value I wanted. If I wanted you won't be able to see with just a plain old cube. Like if I wanted the y-axis to be 60 degrees, I can input 60, and then it'll change. Okay, so for some reason I wanted it to go back to 0, and it's not. There it goes. Okay. The other tool is the scale tool. So you guessed it, you can scale stuff. And so if I grab the handle on the Y, it'll expand along the Y-axis, or I can expand it along the X-axis by grabbing the red, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Now here's what's that's one way to do it, and I actually like moving stuff by enabling these icons, or this icon, because I can see what I'm doing. But there's another way to move, rotate, and scale in Blender, and that's with the use of the letter G on the keyboard, plus using the letters either X, Y, or Z. Now, let me explain what the heck I mean. Okay, so the object is selected. I hit the letter G. Now, I don't click anything. All right, I'm not clicking, but if I move the mouse, this thing, floats mysteriously about, within the 3D world. Okay, now let's say if I wanted it there. Okay, that's cool. I would click, and that's the position it would take. Let me Command Z to move it back. Now, again, let me do that again. Now, G, hitting the letter G, get the white outline, and I'm just moving the mouse. Now, the thing is, I really don't have any control where the heck this thing is going. It's hard for me to see where the heck it is, but that's okay, because what you can do is you can constrain the movement along an axis by using the letters on the keyboard. So if I hit the letter G and then I hit the letter X, now it's only going to move along the X axis. Okay, so let's say, I want it there. I know exactly where I want it, right there. Cool. I click, there it is. Now, but I want it a little bit higher, so I'm going to hit G and then the letter Z, and the object is constrained to move along the Z-axis. And again, I'm not clicking anything on my mouse. Okay, so let's say, okay, yay, that's what I want. So anyway, so the letter G plus the letter X, Y, or Z will allow you to move the objects and constrain it along the axis. Likewise with the rotation. Now I can use the rotation tool, or I can hit the letter R on the keyboard. Now again, just hit the letter R, I'm not clicking anything, and I'm moving it around, and it's pretty wacky. To me, this is hard to control. I don't know, maybe there's Blender geniuses out there who can know how to do this really well. I'm not one of them. So you can constrain, just like we did with the move tool, you can constrain the rotation around axes by using the letters on the keyboard. So R, okay, don't do anything else. And then let's say I want to rotate it around the X axis. So I'll hit X, and now it's constrained to only rotate around the X axis. Okay, and then when I'm happy with what I got, I can click it. Okay, yay, now I want to, if I want to rotate it around the Y axis, I will hit G, or pardon me, nope, not G, R for rotate, and then the axis I want it to rotate around, in this case, would be Y, so Y, so now it's constrained to rotate around the Y. So that's to rotate, that's the letter R plus X, Y, or Z. Okie doke. Let me go back here. And then the scale tool, same thing, kind of, sort of. Okay, so like we can hit the letter S for scale. And if I want it to scale only, well, I can, if I move the mouse back and forth, it'll expand along all axes. Okie dokie. And sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes that makes sense. It's better to do that. But if you wanted to only scale along an axis, I'm sure you guys figured it out by now, hit the letter S, and let's say I only wanted to expand along the Y-axis, so I'll hit the letter Y, and then when I move the mouse, no clicking, just moving, the expansion is constrained along the Y-axis. Okay, so let me think here. The only other thing I would say is over here in the properties, you can change the scale as well along each axis. So you can hover over the number and scroll left and right. Scrolling right will increase the number, left will decrease the number. Or you can input any values in here for the scale. You're wondering what scale is it? I guess they use meters. Apparently, like the location is 0 meters, meters, but everything defaults to like 1 unit. In the world of digital 3D modeling, it doesn't matter what units they are, whether they're miles or feet or inches, as long as you're consistent when you're building other objects. Okay, so that's how you move, rotate, and scale objects, and that's that.